So we are in episode 3 of Kings and Generals, the English Civil War series. The link to this video is down in the description down below. And if you enjoy any of my commentary, any of my thoughts, or whatever I have to offer, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and help support my small but very humble channel. And without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we?
However, finding Tadcaster abandoned, Sir Thomas opted to destroy the enemy earthworks in the town, causing much delay, while a sizable contingent of royalists crossed the river wharf at Thorpe Arch, just north of Tadcaster, and was advancing rapidly on his position. The royalists were led by Colonel George Goring, who was a capable yet often erratic cavalier. Sir Thomas's force marching against the royalists was slightly larger than Goring's, but Sir Thomas only had 150 horsemen, compared to Goring's complement of around 1,000 horsemen and dragoons. The remainder of the parliamentarian command consisted of foot, musketeers, and clubmen. Sir Thomas was faced with a difficult task, withdrawing in the face of an enemy numerically superior in horsemen across two large areas of open ground, Bramham Moor and Winmore. The area of Winmore, closest to Seacroft village, was known locally as Seacroft Moor. The Roundheads began their march onto Bramham Moor with the royalist horse hot in pursuit. Offsetting his numerical inferiority by utilising country lanes, Fairfax intended to bottle up the royalists long enough for his foot units to reach the enclosures between Bramham Moor and Winmore. Continuing his steady withdrawal until his foot had enough time to cross Bramham Moor, Sir Thomas was outraged to find that his foot troops had not moved an inch from their positions. With the royalists fast approaching, Sir Thomas opted to divide his foot companies into two divisions, sending them across the moor, protecting their rear with 3 troops of horse. By now, the royalists had deployed on the moor in 3 equal contingents, and were continuing to shadow the Roundheads' withdrawal, maintaining several hundred yards distance. Before long, Sir Thomas's forces reached the enclosures between Bramham Moor and Winmore, but the situation rapidly deteriorated when the men reached the town of Kithall. Here, the men broke ranks to seek a drink on that hot day, and the parliamentarian forces' cohesion became disrupted. A crisis point was being reached in the battle.
Okay, so much is going oddly wrong with Fairfax. I'm noticing a trend in this series in general that seems to be plaguing both the royalists and the forces of parliament. And it's simply, there seems to be a lack of discipline among soldiers. So far the royalists' biggest eld is because they couldn't capitalize on their successes because their soldiers decided to loot or pursue enemies. And even here we're seeing this with Fairfax. There seems to be a lack of discipline on both sides, which is really kind of complicating the situation.
When Sir Thomas's column emerged from the enclosures onto the moor, Goring's men were shadowing them a few hundred yards to the north. Before the parliamentarians could manage to reach the safety of Seacroft village, Goring turned his men into battle lines and charged the disrupted Roundhead ranks. 1,000 horsemen bore down on Sir Thomas's men, who stood little chance in their exposed and greatly disordered column.
Dang, man, this is a really bad position. And I think the horseman's superiority is something that I took note of, he just stated, because the last video we saw in battle that the royalists seem to have the better cavalry. Not only the commander, but yeah, just numerical better cavalry. And that seems to be the main advantage so far we've seen in these last 2 videos that the royalists have over parliament.
The parliamentarians, greatly pressed by the royalist horse, soon fell into panic and disarray. The militia clubmen fled almost immediately, while the remaining companies of foot and musketeers put up a slightly better defence. But when the infantry discharged their muskets, they found themselves defenceless against the royalist horsemen. Heavily outnumbered, Sir Thomas's mounted troops decided to abandon their comrades in the foot companies to their fate.
Oh my
Most
goodness.
of the Roundhead horsemen managed to retreat, but few of the foot companies and musketeers could escape their current predicament. The parliamentarians had been well and truly beaten at the Battle of Seacroft Moor. Over 800 prisoners were taken, along with about 100 to 200 men killed. Sir Thomas Fairfax would describe the battle as the greatest loss we ever received.
Yeah, that was a complete disaster on all... Yeah, Fairfax was having so many problems there with his men, and just, again, the cavalry superiority so far seems to be the Royalists' greatest advantage, and again, man. Yeah, that was a major L for Parliament there.
On March 30th, one of Newcastle's subordinates, George Goring, soundly defeated the Northern parliamentarians at Seacroft Moor near Leeds. Unwilling to be defeated so easily, the Fairfaxes got back at him in May. On the night of the 21st, Sir Thomas Fairfax stormed Wakefield in an excellently executed night assault and captured Goring in the process. Wow. The setback was a shock to Newcastle and meant that the Yorkshire Royalists were unable to spare any troops to assist their Queen's progress back to Oxford. A few weeks earlier, Essex had roused Parliament's main army in the Thames Valley and used it to besiege Reading, a vital link in the defensive line shielding Charles's makeshift capital at Oxford. Essex took the city on April 25th after a blockade lasting almost 2 weeks. Unfortunately for the Lord General, his overly cautious nature and a massive outbreak of typhus among his soldiers crippled the Roundhead army, threw away its strategic initiative, and gave Royalist forces in the area much needed breathing room.
Oh my goodness. But, yeah. Understandable, but again, it seems like whenever a side so far has been getting an advantage, they're not able to fully capitalize on it, whether it be due to lack of discipline in their own troops, the caution of their generals, or just natural factors such as that illness spreading around. You guys notice that, right? So far, that's the trend I keep noticing. Any advantage any side gets, they never fully are able to press it or roll with it, the momentum, you know? Which keeps creating a momentum shift on both sides.
On June 1st, Henrietta Maria left York, accompanied by 5,000 men, and despite being clearly sighted by Essex's scouts, was not intercepted. As the supply convoy slowly moved south, the northern campaign reached a climax, when Newcastle's 10,000 men cornered and crushed Thomas Fairfax's 3,500 at Old Walton Moor, securing Royalist control over Yorkshire and besieging the parliamentarians at Hull. Now free of pressure from the Thames Valley, Prince Rupert, victorious in many small raids and cavalry skirmishes, rode north to escort his queen the rest of the way. She finally entered Oxford on July 14th to rapturous applause and the ringing of bells. Everything was going the king's way, but the Royalist summer hadn't peaked just yet. The main threat to Oxford in 1643 was Sir William Waller's newly formed Western Association Army, operating in and around the area of modern Wiltshire and the southwest, threatening to cut off Royalist communication with Wales, a key recruiting ground. He was opposed in the west by the brilliant Royalist commander Sir Ralph Hopton, an old friend and comrade of Waller's with whom he had fought in the 30 Years' War decades earlier. He was also a notorious disciplinarian, touting the firm but fair motto, "Pay well, command well, hang well."
Yeah, we've been needing some discipline so far, so I'm not sure if that'll be good or not, but yeah, so far the lack of discipline has been kind of rearing its head, so yeah.
There was any chance of an eastward link-up between Hopton's Royalist army and Charles's force in Oxford for a combined offensive on London, parliamentarian control in the west first had to be crushed. Back on May 16th, Hopton had defeated the Roundheads at the Battle of Stratton in Cornwall, and his rapid progress into Devon had encouraged the king to send him reinforcements under Prince Maurice and the Marquis of Hertford. On June 4th, Hopton's army was reinforced at Chard, bringing his combined strength up to 4,000 foot, 2,000 horsemen, and 300 dragoons, as well as 16 cannon. In the ensuing campaign, Hopton, Hertford, and Prince Maurice would share equal command over their army, combining their dignity, rank, and military skills to form an effectively led fighting force. Hertford commanded in name through his social status, while Hopton led in the field, and Prince Maurice oversaw the army's horse contingent.
Alright, that's an interesting trio there. I'm wondering if it's gonna go, because sometimes we've heard of shared command not working well in past videos, but again, I'm interested in seeing if their triple alliance here could be effective on the field.
The Royalists' plan for the summer campaign in the west relied on the construction of a stout, defensible base of operations by seizing Wells, Taunton, Bridgewater and Dunster Castle before applying pressure against the Parliamentarians' main rallying point at Bath. Cavalry raids and skirmishes erupted in the countryside between Royalists and Parliamentarians as Hopton's army converged on its objectives. On June 9th, a large skirmish broke out south of Chewton Mendip, in which Prince Maurice was temporarily taken prisoner.
Oh, snap.
A 3-week lull then ensued, during which Waller hoped to augment his army at Bath with additional reinforcements. The Parliamentarian cavalry was bolstered by a regiment of cuirassiers arriving from London under Sir Arthur Heselrigge, bringing the Parliamentarian cavalry strength up to 2,500. But Waller badly needed infantry. By the first week of July, Waller could field no more than 1,500 footmen against Hopton's 4,000. The Royalists entered Bradford-on-Avon on July 2nd, bringing them within 5 miles southeast of Bath. In response, Waller moved his army to Claverton Down to halt the enemy's advance. On the 3rd, Hopton's regiments began pushing back Waller's picket posts and other outlying detachments. With pressure bearing down on him from Prince Maurice, whose horse regiments attacked Claverton, and with Hopton's foot regiments pursuing Waller's troops through Bath Easton, the Parliamentarians were forced to make a hasty withdrawal into Bath. At midnight, Hopton evaluated his situation and considered moving past Bath Easton to the southern slopes of Lansdowne Hill. However, having just a portion of the army at his disposal, Hopton decided to wait until Prince Maurice's horse regroups with him the next day.
Okay, so according to my time codes, I'm gonna end the video right here, and tomorrow I'm assuming another battle, so I'll see you guys tomorrow when we get there.